Holy City Center Radio is episode 366, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. What's up, you April Fools? Can you believe it? It's April 30th. That's what made me think of April Fool's Day. I feel like I was just talking about the silly April Fool's pranks that companies do. And specifically, I talked about the Charleston River Dogs, how they said Dollar Beer Night was going away for their April Fools. And, people got all worked up about it. I feel like that was just like a week ago that I was recording that episode. I can't believe April's almost over. The weather has been great, nice and warm, not too oppressively hot, but with May coming up here, it just reminds me we're going to have some very, very hot days coming up. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying cool on those extra hot days. Hope you had a great weekend. I'm glad to be back with you. Before we get into the news, just a couple quick updates. I mentioned that my parents are visiting. They are still here. It's been great spending so much time with them. We have been hanging out, watching some TV shows together, going out to eat or eating, dinner in my place. Their dog is here, which is, been a lot of fun playing with her and, seeing her interact with my cat, and just been a great visit. We've also done some stuff around the condo, just staying busy. But I did tell you all that if we went out to eat, I would, report back. And although I'm pretty sure I've talked about this, it's been a couple years since I've been there. But we went to Workman's Cafe, which, for those unfamiliar, is on James Island. It's a little spot that is only open. I think it's Tuesday to Friday, and then they're closed Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and they're only open till about 4 p.m. on those weekdays. So there's a limited window. So it's more of a lunch spot or a very early dinner spot. But it's awesome. I've been there a few times in the past and always happy with the food. It's, it's a mix of like Southern food, soul food. Sometimes there's some specials that maybe don't necessarily fit in those categories, but they generally do. So we went back. Like I said, it's been a while since, any of us have been there, but I haven't gone without them either. And it did not disappoint. We've got a mix of things. They had some specials, including they had some what they were called Cajun pork bites. Basically, it was just pieces of pork, almost like in chicken nugget form, not deep fried though. And they were, basically it was the mojo sauce, if you've ever seen that or had that. And it was really, really tasty. I paired it with Cajun mac and cheese, which, had a little kick to it. Really, really good. And then I got lima beans. I think my mom got some sweet tea brined ribs, which she said were really good. I tried a piece. It was delicious. And my dad got something similar to what I got. There's also cornbread. They had like a garlic butter biscuit as well. And everything was awesome. Both of my parents agreed. They were happy with what they got. And I definitely recommend you go check it out. And like I said, it's a really great place to get food. But it is limited hours, so be sure to get there before 4 p.m. And as of this recording, they're a Tuesday to Friday operation, and you can find them online. They tend to have some specials on certain days of the week. They also have certain menu items that you can always get. Like there almost always is like fried chicken, for instance. And there's usually some kind of, fish dish as well. But then they'll also add things to the menu, like those Cajun things I mentioned. Those were not something that you normally see. So you can go to their website and see what's new. And you can also see what's normally on their menu. But I mean, just go. There's going to be something good, even if you don't check out the menu to see what's special, what might not be served that day, and what is. It's all been very, very good, and I highly recommend it. I also, some people might be interested in this. I know I'm interested when people try out certain products, especially ones that are talked about on podcasts, since I listen to so many. But if you've listened to really any podcast ever, besides this one, which very rarely has ads in it, but any of the bigger podcasts, you've probably heard one of the, mattress companies that are, mostly sold online. For instance, your Nectar, your Helix, your Sleep Number, so on and so forth. And after many years of kind of looking at them and wanting a new mattress, I finally got one. I went with the Helix. They have like a sleep quiz, and it asks you questions. You a side sleeper, back sleeper, stomach, etc. And then a couple other questions as well. And so I decided to go with Helix. That just seemed like the one that appealed to me the most, as well as some other options as far as like payment options they had and pricing and things. And it finally came in very comfortable, very happy with it. Glad to have a new mattress. I've only slept on it once, but so far so good. It's supposed to have like a cooling property to it. Nothing fancy. It's not like anything electrical hooked up to it or anything. But whatever the material is made of, it's supposed to like keep the bed cool, which I appreciate since I tend to run a little hot. But so far so good. I'll keep you posted. If anything changes, but happy with that purchase so far. Like I said, I would be interested if anybody, tried some of these things out. There's other products you always hear advertised on podcasts, and you wonder, is it really good, or, do they just, have a lot of advertisements out there? So anyway, just wanted to share that in case you all are interested. Something a little bit more interesting, perhaps. I started an Instagram channel. For those who are unfamiliar, channels are basically a way for whoever, if you create one, you can send out messages to anyone who decides to, like, quote unquote subscribe to your channel. It's free. It's not like a paid thing, and it's a way to contact people that really want to hear from you, whatever you decide. You'll see some companies, they'll run polls or maybe giveaways. It's supposed to be for like their top fans or whatever. So I decided to do something that another Instagram account has been doing, which is to provide breaking news. More so, if there's traffic, if there's an accident, roads are closed down, just a quick way to hit someone's phone. Because when I post it on Twitter, or if I post it on my site, it doesn't send an alert to anyone necessarily, unless they have alerts signed up for my Twitter account, which I wouldn't recommend since I tweet so many stories throughout the day. But this way you're not missing important information. In the Instagram account that I basically copied that from is Chucktown Memes, which you may be familiar with, a very popular account here in Charleston. So after talking to that account, actually it reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to just partner on this? That way we can kind of combine forces here and share important news as it comes out, and whoever can get to it first, since we have different schedules, one of us may be busy, and I thought that was a good idea. So I partnered with Chucktown Memes. I'm gonna send out that information on my Instagram. So if you go to your Instagram, you can go to Holy City Center and you'll see like the channels listed, or you can go to Chucktown Memes and see there's a button for channel, and you can sign up for that. And again, we're not looking to inundate you with nonsense. It's going to be things like road closures, accidents, if there's a public safety alert, or, severe weather, things like that. So it's not going to be like, hey, this new store is opening in 3 weeks. It's just going to be important information. So just wanted to share that with you. And please join. Yeah, it's just a great way to get information out as quickly as possible. Speaking of, let's get into the latest news. A new website popped up. Someone I know created it, sent it to me. They don't want to be named because they're afraid it'll affect their businesses that they're working on, and I can understand that because we've seen a lot of, especially the Trump administration. Obviously, he's not worried about the Trump administration, but the lackeys, and we're talking about one of those MAGA lackeys, Nancy Mace, worried that she'll somehow retaliate or whatever. And again, I don't blame him. We've talked a lot about Nancy Mace on this podcast for many reasons. And we've talked about how she goes after people who don't have a platform, that they're trying to be a public person. And, we don't need to dive into it again, but you get it. So this person that I know created this website, sent it to me and let me know about it. And it's called Where's Nancy Mace. It's where'snancy.com. You can visit the link in the show notes to visit the link, as well as the petition that the creator of this website put together as well. So this new website, Where's Nancy Mace, is urging her to hold an in-person public town hall with her constituents here in the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina. We don't need to rehash everything we know about the whole town hall situation, how she's claimed she's held two, but one was a last minute on phone only, quote unquote, town hall, where it was really just a monologue of her. And the other one we talked about in the most recent podcast, where it was in a gated community near Beaufort, where no one, not the public, couldn't get in. It was regular. It was listed. Only people a part of a certain organization within that community could be there. So this is urging her, like many others have, to hold a town hall and making it clear that this is coming from a constituent. The website's being shared with constituents. This isn't some paid agitators, which is a false story anyway. And just asking her to hurry up and let's do this. So they've created a petition that you can sign digitally. Again, visit the link in the show notes. You can see the website they put together, and then also click on over to the petition if you want to sign that. So just wanted to let you all know about that, but also I wanted to pair it with this next piece of news. A lot of people, not just Democrats or people who lean left and liberal, are kind of tired of Nancy Mace. Does that mean that someone who's a Republican or conservative is going to vote for a Democrat? No, not necessarily, but they may want just a more normal, even keeled Republican. Regardless, we know now that there may be a new name coming up soon to take her on. New in the fact that no one has announced that they are running for that seat. But not new because you may remember that this person previously ran. So Mac Deford, he ran in the Democratic primary for District 1. He ultimately lost to Michael B. Moore. And then Moore went on to lose to Nancy Mace in the most recent election. Well, Deford is contemplating running again now that he's gotten his name out there a little bit more, and hoping that the momentum he might have built up a little bit can continue. He's launched an exploratory committee to run against Nancy Mace. Now again, I know as sick as sick as some people are of Nancy Mace, they're not going to vote for a Democrat. So if you're one of those people, I know this doesn't matter to you. But if you are willing to just vote for anyone, well, DeFord might eventually announce. Right now, exploratory committees are exactly what they sound like. It's a way for a candidate, or potential candidate, I should say, to get their name out there, to see if there's desire for them to run, to see if people, donors and things like that would support you. And so that's where we're at with Mac DeFord. I don't know the details of what exactly he's been doing behind the scenes, but I do know he's launched a website. It's macdeford.org. Link is in the show notes. And, you can donate to his potential campaign. And if my Facebook page is any indication, he should run, because it is me saying that he's launched this exploratory committee has been blowing up as far as my posts are concerned. This is not going national by any means, but a lot of likes, a lot of comments supporting him, a few people asking, like, can we donate now, and so on and so forth. So there does seem to be at least a little bit of momentum behind it. So you can go learn more about him, and you can respond, let him know if you would like him to run or donate to his potential campaign. For those who don't know him, aside from what I just mentioned, he is a U.S. Coast Guard veteran. He is also a graduate of the Citadel, just like Nancy Mace. Um, so some people, that right there, having that military background may be important. And then seeing someone who's a little bit more even keeled than Mace's, some Citadel folks may appreciate that as well. But also, obviously, everyone in the community probably appreciates someone who's not going to be doing this whole national Nancy routine. So, according to his website, some of his top priorities include holding the Trump administration accountable. That includes restoring congressional control over tariffs, which, the administration didn't bother going through Congress for when they announced them. He's also saying that a priority is protecting Social Security, upholding civil rights, including the fundamental right to due process, which is being talked about a lot as we're seeing people being deported and sent to El Salvador, specifically a very bad prison there without any due process. That also includes women's rights, so think abortion and things of that nature. Fighting back against government overreach, particularly attacks on public education and institutions of higher learning, which obviously we are also seeing. And also reaffirming support for our democratic institutions. That's lowercase democrat, not Democrat, the partisan, just how we're supposed to be a democracy. And that includes an independent judiciary and the rule of law. So you can learn more at macdeford.org, as I said, and go ahead and visit the link in the show notes, which will help you get to that spot. On several episodes over the last few months, we've talked about some of the effects that the Trump administration's policies, whether it be things like that Doge department cutting jobs, cutting research and funding, tariffs, so on and so forth, how they're affecting the country, but more specifically, how it's affecting folks here in South Carolina and even more locally, Charleston. Um, and we've had a few different examples of businesses that are closing or layoffs that are coming, prices rising, and so on and so forth. And we've got a couple stories here that will relate to these consequences from these policies. And one is the housing market. So right now, you may be aware it's not super cheap to live in Charleston. It's very expensive, whether you are renting or owning or looking to own. It's not cheap, obviously. And it could get worse because of these new immigration policies that are coming out of the White House. That's right. It can make it even less affordable to own a home here in the Charleston area. And obviously, this will affect the whole country, but we're keeping it here locally. So this story comes from Live 5 News. They spoke to a few different people who expressed what these immigration policies can mean. Obviously, people being deported, you're removing people who may be working in construction, and that could lead to rising costs. So, according to Live 5 News, Latino workers and Latinos are the biggest targets of these immigration, policies, deportation. They currently make up nearly a third of the nation's construction workforce. Many of these workers, particularly those who are here in the country without permission, they're undocumented, they now face the threat of deportation under the Trump administration's renewed immigration enforcement efforts. We've also seen documented people get deported. Now there's a difference, obviously, if someone has committed a crime or not. But we've seen some who have committed no crime and are here legally, who have been deported either erroneously or, I mean, let's be honest, they're not doing this in error. They don't care. But that aside, uh, whether people are actually removed or they're just afraid, to be out publicly working in construction for fear that, ICE might come and round them up, whether they are here and undocumented or not, they may not be going out to work. So whether they're actually being removed or just afraid to go out there, they don't want to take that chance, that takes them out of that workforce, which will then have several ripple effects, of course, and would ultimately drive up the price tag on things like new homes being built. According to this post, these policy proposals from the Trump White House could affect nearly 20% of the U.S. construction workforce. They pulled that from the Immigration Forum. Now, couple that with the fact that the industry is already experiencing a shortage, and economists are now saying losing even a fraction of those workers would have wide reaching consequences. So, for instance, some of the folks they spoke to and some of the data they pulled, this is, just kind of giving you an idea of what we're talking about here. Say a starter home costs $400,000, and then say your painter or your drywallers or whoever are making $15 to $18 an hour. Now, if those folks are getting deported or they're afraid to come to work, and then a documented or American-born laborer is replacing those folks, they're not going to do it for that $15 or $18 an hour. They're going to want to do it for something like $35, $36 an hour, which means that $400,000 home is now going to cost much more. Obviously, if you're going to have to pay your workers more, that's going to drive up your costs, which you then pass on to, yes, the consumer. In addition to that, immigrants usually don't ask for things like benefits or 401ks for, many different reasons. And obviously, again, someone who's documented or just American born, they are going to ask for those things. They are going to look for those things, which again is going to drive up costs. So just something to be on the lookout for if it hasn't happened already. That, and again, This is not to say that people who commit crimes shouldn't be here, or that there shouldn't be border enforcement to stop people from coming in, who coming in improper ways. It's not to say that, but this mass, without due process, sending people away who have every right to be here, who haven't committed crimes or are documented or have some kind of protection, and we've seen that happen. Uh, that is all going to affect many industries, but this is one specifically. And I appreciate Live 5 News doing this story and kind of putting some numbers out there and explaining it in simple terms so people can understand. If you want to dive deeper into it, hit the link in the show notes. So this is related to the Trump administration's policies as far as tariffs and rising costs and things, but we all know that food prices were rising prior to him coming into office, but they are showing no signs of slowing down. And again, some of this Trump administration policies may drive up the cost of things like food. So in 2022, food prices increased faster than any year since 1979. And since the COVID pandemic, food costs have risen almost 25%. This is according to the Federal Department of Agriculture. So the Post and Courier put a story together involving these rising costs and how they could go up more and how it's affecting people in the country, but specifically here in South Carolina. So putting aside rising food costs being a problem for all manner of people, it's even worse for folks who already are in what are called food deserts or food swamps. And I'll dive into those in a moment for those who don't know those terms. But right now in South Carolina, more than 700,000 people experience food insecurity, which is a lack of having reliable access to affordable, healthy food. So it's not necessarily a lack of access to food, but it's a lack of access to affordable and or healthy foods. Obviously, both of those are a problem. And these problems could be exacerbated by, different policies and changes that are happening in this country. Now, people who experience food insecurity, whether it's the food, obviously there's a chunk that just can't afford it, even if they live right next door to a grocery store. But it's exacerbated for people who live in these so-called food deserts or food swamps. So a food desert is an area where the closest grocery store is at least a mile away. In rural areas, that distance could obviously grow to be, 10 miles or more. What some people might think, well, a mile's not that big of a deal, and no, it's not as big as say 10 miles away, but it can still be an issue for people who say lack reliable transport. Maybe they don't have a car, maybe their car is unreliable, maybe if they take public transportation, either they don't have access to it in their area, or it's unreliable as well, and it affects their day, with whatever jobs they may have. And obviously we've also seen grocery stores closing in these areas, which just makes the problem even worse, and we could see that even more as prices rise. Now meanwhile, on the other end, a food swamp, and this was a new term for me, these are areas with a high concentration of unhealthy food. So there may be access to food nearby, but it's not healthy food. This could be like there's a bunch of fast food restaurants around or convenience stores. You're not getting, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. You're getting, you know how fast food is at the highest quality of things, even, even though the food might not be healthy anyway. Like you shouldn't be eating hamburgers every day, but also definitely not hamburgers from a fast food joint. So that's what a food swamp is there is access to food and it may be affordable, but it's not healthy. So South Carolina has one of the highest prevalence of food insecurity in the country, which I just mentioned. There's over 700,000 people in the Palmetto State that currently experience that. And when we look at the numbers from the Food Security Council, 39 of the 46 counties here in South Carolina have food deserts located within them. So that doesn't mean necessarily the majority of people who live in those counties are in a food desert, but almost every single county here in the state has at least, a food desert somewhere located within the county bounds. Obviously, that is a problem. Many times these are low income areas, as we've talked about. So just another example of how policies and changes can make what is already a bad situation even worse for many folks. And it's definitely something that we need to keep an eye on, and hopefully we can get some relief for people in these situations, whether that is pushing back against these policies, or donating to food kitchens, food banks, and so on. All right, let's close out this show with some good news, something to smile about. Now, if you've ever been to the Griffin Pub downtown, it's on Vendu Range, nearby Waterfront Park where the Pineapple Fountain is. If you've ever been inside, you would know it if you don't remember the name, because you've seen the walls covered floor to ceiling in dollar bills. So yes, now some of you might be like, oh, that place, yes. It's a spot I had been to many times over the years. It's a dive bar, of course. You can tell by the fact that it's plastered in dollar bills. If you're like me, you've often wondered, what do? They just leave them there, because some have been written on, some get torn, so you can't use them for legal tender anymore. But it turns, not all writings on the bills will, make it so they can't be used. But, there are some that certainly couldn't be. But I always wondered, what do? Do they ever take it down? Do they do anything with that money? Or are people just pasting dollar bills on top of each other? Well, they do periodically remove the money from the walls, and then they'll donate them. And the Post and Courier covered their most recent example of this, where they took down some of those stapled dollars and donated it to a Charleston nonprofit called Ohm Radio. It's an actual radio station. It's 96.3 on your FM dial, for those who still listen to the radio. And I just felt ancient saying FM dial, but they are a local community supported radio station. They have local programming. They play local music, and they do a really great job of just keeping a focus on all things Charleston. Well, they just received $11,352 from the Griffin Pub, which is amazing to think that amount of money was just sitting on the walls there. So hats off to the Griffin Pub. Congrats to Ohm Radio getting those donations. That's incredible. Love hearing stories like that. And if you're wondering, like I said, this isn't the most recent. I mean, this isn't the only time that the Griffin has done this. This is just the most recent time. They've done a bunch of other charitable giving over the last decade. They have donated to things like the Movember Foundation, the Mother Emanuel AME Church, Lowcountry Food Bank, and also Madrurua when that Irish pub burned in 2019 out in Park Circle. They've also donated to Pay It Forward Charleston and several other campaigns for food and beverage workers who, face medical bills that they need help and assistance with. So again, hats off to the Griffin. Loved hearing that. I always wondered what happened, if anything, with those dollar bills, and pleasantly surprised that that was the answer. That'll do it for this midday edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System. She produces this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And a thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. I'll be back with you in just a couple days. I'm already looking forward to it. But until then, good night and good luck.